This metadata hack is gonna blow your mind.
Metadata madness.
Hey folks, Diana J. Brody here from NLE Academy, and today I'm gonna be talking with my good friend Ron, who has created this metadata hack that is incredible. You are not even gonna believe it. I was blown away. I've edited documentaries with like 12 terabytes or more of footage where the people don't know what they want to do with the footage. They just give me the drive and say, hey, we shot this documentary. And then what do you do with all that footage, right? How do you wrangle that footage and work with that metadata, right? So now this is going to be really specifically a hack for Avid, a round trip with metadata in and out of Avid. But I'm betting that this can be applied to other NLEs. If you have an idea how to do that, you leave that in the comments. This would be amazing also for an unscripted reality type show where you've got tons of footage, but it's not exactly clear how it's going to be put together. It's not as linear as other shows, right? Let's say, for the sake of argument. So let's talk to Ron and see what this is all about. Ron, welcome to the channel. How the heck are you doing?
Diana, it's so great to be here. Thank you for
Welcome to the
having me.
show.
Yeah, this is cool. So you've laid it out perfectly, the kind of scenario we're talking about here, right? You know the situation. It's
Right.
exactly what you said, right? You've got a pile of footage. You don't know what the story is yet. Maybe you've got themes. Maybe you've got different timelines that are kind of intersecting in strange ways. Maybe you want to take a story character by character, and then you're kind of winding back in time, whatever. You're not quite sure. It's just a whole bunch of footage. And so this is a technique that involves, as you said, a round trip. We're taking it out of Avid into some other software, which we'll talk about, and then bringing it back into Avid, and it relinks to your original Avid footage with new data attached to it that allows you to see your footage in new ways.
It's it's crazy. It's when Ron demonstrated this to me, I was like, "Wait, what?" Like, so, give us before we show you how it's done, just give us the origin story for a second. Tell us how you went about even figuring this out.
Okay, so there was a specific project, which I'll tell you about in a moment. And then I also want to give a shout out to two assistant editors with channels who were using a particular method, something called ALE files or Avid Log Exchange files. So shout out to Jack. The Avid Assistant is the name of his channel. He's in the
Okay.
UK. And then there's a couple people who run a channel called Master the Workflow.
Oh, they're great. Master the Workflow. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've seen their website, and I know people who have taken their courses. Really incredible. They're amazing. The work they're doing is great.
So yeah, one of those guys, Richard Sanchez is his name, has a
Right.
lovely, beautifully complex video about how he uses ALEs in a way that's different from what I'm about to show you.
Right.
But it's kind of that's what
We'll
gave me the
we'll
idea.
try and we'll try and link those down in the description for folks. So take a look at the description for all of that info.
Great idea. Um, and so yeah, maybe I can tell you a little bit about what prompted me to
Yeah.
need this method. And it was a particular job I was working on. It's pretty much exactly the sort of scenario you said at the beginning, where there's a whole bunch of footage. In this case, it was 7 hours of footage. Um, and it was a behind the scenes doc. So the producers of a set of commercials brought
Mhm.
me in because they had done this set of commercials. I'm just going to sort of scroll
Oh,
through here and show you what these little commercials look like. They were
yeah.
7 ad spots, and you can just see
Oh,
what
wow.
these look like. They're
Okay.
advertising really just a condo building, and they were trying to get people to buy a unit in the condo building. And the
Ooh.
building hadn't been constructed yet, but they had to make 7 ads to entice people to buy in. So it was a sweet little
Wow.
ad campaign.
Okay.
I was not involved at all in the making of it. But they very much believed in their approach to branding and marketing,
Yeah.
and they followed these principles when they made these ads.
Okay.
And so now they gave me all the footage and said, assemble this in a way that shows what our philosophy is. Most of it was behind the scenes footage, the crew
Sure.
talking to each other, directing the actors, the actual, shot of a scene being shot. So I had all of these behind the scenes things. plus I had the finished ads, plus I had shots, stills of all of the paperwork, the maps, the
Oh,
planning,
wow.
the schedule for shooting days, all of that. Plus I had a special kind of asset, which was while they were shooting these commercials, the producer would turn to the videographer and actually specifically record a stand-up for the purpose of including in a behind-the-scenes
Oh,
reel. So he would actually say, "Okay, here I am, whatever, we've got the act," and he would explain what he was doing. So that was also part of the assets. So if you think of this from the point of view of how you sort the footage, my head hurt because there were so many ways to possibly organize all of this footage. Because in some cases, there was a moment where it was clearly an example of one of their principles of marketing that they were doing for a particular ad. Um, and then but that same little clip could have also been used as an example of something else. So
right.
which bin do I put it in? How do I name it? How do I label it? How do I keep track of all this? So a key to this is, and I'm sure you've done this too with docs, is to make selects reels, right? Where you have like the possible candidates that could fit into a segment or into a
Right.
scene, and you get them all in one place, and you look through them, and you see, okay, is there something here in the footage that could be an act in the documentary, could be a sequence. So, in order to create these selects reels, the method I used was to track everything in one giant spreadsheet. So I'm just going to show you what this looks like. Don't get overwhelmed. This is it in its final form, and we'll talk through it in little bits and pieces. This is a Google Sheets worksheet, but you could just as easily do this with Microsoft Excel, LibreOffice Calc, Apple Numbers, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter as long as it has basic spreadsheet functionalities. But this is what it looks like to start with. The important thing to know about this is that this giant spreadsheet has all of my notes on every asset to do with this project. All the kinds of footage I talked about, fly on the wall, cutaways, interviews, PDFs, whatever, they're all here. And before we go any further, I want to back up a step just to show you how this footage got here into a spreadsheet. And really, all that matters are these first few columns at this point. And these columns are just metadata from the clips that are already embedded in the clip, and I just had to bring them into this spreadsheet. And so the very first step is to get relevant data from Avid into a spreadsheet. So here we have your typical Avid bin. And what's noteworthy about this bin is that it is every single clip from all of your footage, all of your shooting days, all of your cutaways, everything goes in this bin. It has over 1,000 clips. It's giant. It could be a copy of existing clips that you already have sorted in other bins. It doesn't matter, but they all have to be clips. They can't be subclips. They can't be sequences. They've got to be actual, what Avid would call a clip. And what we're going to do with that is work with what are called ALE files, or Avid Log Exchange files. So usually when you save a bin, it's saved as a .avb file. That's probably what you're familiar with seeing in your folder structure. But this is not an AVB file. It's something called an ALE file, which is different and easier to work with. First of all, let's just talk specifically about this whole idea of a .ale file, an Avid Log Exchange file. Let's just create an ALE file from our bin. And you'll notice I've got a particular view of the bin that just has a few of the column headers. You don't need much for this. You really only need enough metadata information to be able to link back to your Avid media at the end of this little round trip that we're going to do. So this is just a bare minimum view of the bin, and the ALE file will only record the metadata that's actually visible right here. In order to export this as an ALE file, you're going to go, first of all, and click in the bin, but be careful not to click on any particular clip. You kind of click here on the edge somewhere, and right-click and select Export Bin. And you're going to save as an Avid Log Exchange file. And in this case, I'm going to save it to my ALE folder. Really just give it some kind of name. And it's a very quick process. Here we go. And if we look at the file that it created, it's just a text file. And you can see, unlike an Avid bin file, an AVB file, the Avid Log Exchange is human readable. And it only has the metadata columns that I had originally selected in that view of my bin. We've got here all the different column headers of metadata. And then down here would be the 1,000+ rows of information about each clip. And that's our data. So now it's just a matter of moving all of these data points into a spreadsheet. We'll start by just selecting and copying the column header data, and we'll just paste that into the top row of the spreadsheet. And then I'll go ahead and select all of the data itself, which is the 1,000+ rows. And then you'll see now that all of this bin information is in a spreadsheet, which is just where you want it, because from a spreadsheet, you can do some powerful things that not only save time, but also lets you experiment with combining clips in new ways that you could otherwise miss. The first big advantage to working in a spreadsheet is that it's much easier to log the footage. So to set yourself up for logging, you could just sort of go through a bunch of your footage, do a little pre-logging analysis. And as you watch your footage, you might start to see particular categories or themes that you want to be watching for as you log the footage. So in this case, the very first thing is it behind the scenes footage or is it something else? I think I mentioned that in this footage, they're actually shooting various ads, right? So for this behind the scenes footage, which ad is it that this particular behind the scenes footage applies to? Then maybe you'd want to know, where was this particular clip shot? Because it's behind the scenes, I want to know, were there any characters who appeared? Can you actually see any of the gear that they were using? Because that could come in handy. So you can just go through and kind of come up with different things that you want to be able to say about each clip. Then, once you have all of these headings set up, and I won't go through and put them all in here, but I hope you get the idea, then you want to be able to watch each clip and see how you would categorize it according to the different categories that you have in mind. And the order of the clips here in this file matches the original order of the clips as you exported it from your bin. So if we go into Avid, that's useful because if you were going to take, I don't know, let's say you were just going to log 100 of these at a time. There's over 1,000, but let's just grab the first 100 of them here. And you know this trick, right? You can just drag and drop into the timeline and it'll put the clips in that order in your timeline. So you can see the first 100 clips and just start watching through them. And then you can go a step further. I won't show exactly how to do this. Folks who are comfortable with Avid may already be finding these things familiar. I created a new video track and then drag time code and clip information on here. So you can, as you watch through, you can always be sure of which clip you're seeing and which time code. And then your fast forward buttons to jump to the next cut. So you can go through each one and watch the clip. And so then as this is playing through, it's in the same order as the clips in the spreadsheet. So you can go through and for each clip, you can make notes on each clip as it's playing here in the record monitor. So just to jump back to the spreadsheet, we're now getting ready to log. And there are just some advantages to using a spreadsheet for this kind of thing. For example, for behind the scenes, let's say I already know that for this column, there are really only a few possible things I'm going to be able to type here. So there is a feature called data validation that most spreadsheets have. And the idea is that you can specify what different options you want to have here. So for example, it's either going to be yes, because it is a it is a behind the scenes shot, or it could be something else. It could be the final ad, so it's not behind the scenes, or it could be an example of some kind of paperwork or documentation that's not behind the scenes. It's not the final ad, but it's some other kind of cutaway that's going to exist in this footage. Then click done. And then when you're entering your data, it'll give you, the options that you can choose from, so you don't really make typing mistakes here all the way through. Similarly, in this case, where it's which ad, similar thing. We're going to go down to our data validation menu. And here there are really only the names of the 7 ads that are being filmed on by this production company. So, one of the ads was called Attention to Detail. Another ad was called Blood Pumping. Another ad was called Celebration. And then when you click done, then as you're entering data, you always know which thing you're allowed to choose from. So it kind of constrains the answers you give. And of course, you can always add to this list. Another advantage to using a spreadsheet to log clips, it's something that, as far as I know, you can't do that easily in Avid. But let's say you're logging a bunch of clips, and you just can see that there's a whole bunch of clips that were shot one after the other at the same time. So you can just copy one and then select which of these cells that applies to, and just do a copy paste, and you've got it all here. So just a very, very fast way to be able to log multiple clips at once as you're watching your footage. And now it's just time to log. And logging is a long process, and it's a tedious process, but it's essential in a documentary, especially in a project like this one where you're developing the script based on the footage. So you may as well watch it and log it this way, where you can capture as much information about the footage as possible based on criteria that you've predefined and criteria that you can even redefine as you get to know the footage. So here's a cleaned up version of our spreadsheet file. And here's where I've actually gone through and logged each clip and categorized based on my criteria. I've also added some color to this, made it a little easier to navigate. But now we've got all 1,000 or so clips with some information about them. And note how this is different from sorting into bins. The same clip is being defined lots of different ways, unlike having to decide the one single bin where a clip can belong. So at this point, lots of the heavy lifting is now done. The logging is completed. You've got this spiffy looking, fully populated spreadsheet with every single clip documented. And then that means the next steps are quick. This is actually the fastest part of this demo. And you would repeat this again and again. The goal here is to generate select reels. And you generate a select reel each time. And each select reel is potentially the basis of a sequence for your finished film. So it's a process you would do a lot. You do this by thinking of the themes or the feelings or the topics that you could imagine being grouped together in some way in your final show. So in this case, as you recall, the project that I was working on was a behind-the-scenes documentary about an ad campaign based on this branding company's philosophy about advertising. So one of their values is authenticity. Now, remember, their client is a condo complex, but the condo hadn't even broken ground yet. There was no building, no facilities, no residents, but they wanted to be as true to their product as possible. The characters that they cast had to be as realistic as possible. So the actors were given time to experience the neighborhood surrounding where the condo would be. They were given time to interact with each other off camera, and they were encouraged to improvise their scenes, for example. So authenticity, that's one of the themes I was looking for in the footage. If I look at all my columns, and I can see I have one called authenticity. And the idea is anytime as I was logging, if I saw an example of some attempt to make this moment authentic, something in particular that the director was doing or that the characters were doing, I labeled it an example of authenticity. So here I've got now just selected. This is something called filtering. I've turned on a filter just for authenticity. So here are all my clips from all the different shooting days, all the different moments which were about authenticity. Now for this segment, I'm also interested in times when the director spoke straight to camera on the set of one of these commercials. And so those are called, the name of the director was SP. So anytime that SP is speaking directly on camera, I want to also filter for that. So now in this case, I've got a filter where what all of these clips now that I've selected have in common is that it's an example of SP talking directly to us. So SP is always Y, yes. And authenticity is also always Y. So every clip here is related to this producer, director talking directly to us about authenticity. And I'm kind of curious to know, let's say I wanted to focus on a particular ad where there's a theme of authenticity that was very important to this producer. So what I could do then is I go up here, instead of filtering, I could do something called sorting. So I'm going to do an A to Z sort here. And now it's the same clips that I had selected before, but it's grouped together, all of them based on which ad was being filmed. So there's one example of authenticity in the blood pumping commercial, one example of him talking about it in Celebration. Ooh, I'm seeing I've got a whole bunch here where he talks straight to camera about authenticity in Child's Nest. That's interesting. How does that compare to the other ones? I think I'd like to see what's going on when he's at Child's Nest. It was an interesting ad, and it looks like he does speak straight to camera during his filming of Child's Nest. So I want to see those clips. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab those rows of the spreadsheet. I'll do a copy paste. So I will leave them where they are, but I'm just going to take these out and I'm just going to say that I'm selecting them. I'm going to paste them in here. So here are just those clips, which are Child's Nest, where SP is talking to us directly, and where he's talking about authenticity. That's cool. Let's go back. So now I kind of know that I want to focus on Child's Nest. I know that let's see if I can make a sequence about Child's Nest. And I'm just going to go for anything that was done in Child's Nest. And in this case, I don't want clips where he's on camera. So I want to have no him on camera because I've got those already. So I want it where the on camera doesn't exist. Let's see where we're seeing the characters in some way. And then what else? Yeah, I think that's good for now. All right. So then I'll take these examples of clips because I want this to be part of my sequence as well. Cool. And now what I think I want to do is I think, this could make for a nice little sequence, these clips. He's talking directly to the camera. You can see the actors working on their authenticity. It's all based around the same ad. Just for fun, let's see what happens if I now put them in the order that the shots actually occurred. So let's sort this in the order of start time. So I'll do a sort here. So here they are in the order that they occurred in sequence. And then once I know what these things are, I have one more version of this page, which automatically takes the important information from this page. These are the clips that I decided I wanted to focus on. And it turns it into, this might look familiar, this is what an ALE file looks like, right? It's just the essential stuff that would go into an ALE file, but it's the ALE in particular for these 20-odd clips that I decided I want to work with. And I also had already put these into some kind of order based on their running order. You could order it lots of other different ways. I could put the cutaways first and then put the guy talking on camera, whatever. But let's keep it in this order. So I'm going to add one more column, which I'll call clip order. And this is a new piece of metadata, clip order, which will also go into our bin. We may as well have that too. And now, since this already conforms to the rules of an Avid Log Exchange file, it's possible to link it back to Avid. So I'm just going to pull in like a blank ALE file. We've kind of seen these before, these straight text files. And what if I just grabbed all of the stuff that I have here, plus one blank line. That's a little idiosyncrasy here. So I'll just paste it into here, into this template file. And then after I pasted it in, you can see it has all of these column headings as I've created them, including this new one called clip order, which I'm adding as a column, which should now appear as a new metadata item in my bin. And then here are the different clips, 24 of them. And I'm just going to click Command S, Control S to save this. And this is now something that theoretically should be able to go back into Avid. So let's try that. First, we go back to our original bin, which has all of our 1,000 plus clips, and we'll select them all. And actually, I'm just going to change them a different color because we're about to import the ALE here, and I just want to keep track of which clips were here originally and which are the new clips. So we've got this ready. We have them all selected. And then if we right click and we say import media, and you can see in this case I have it already opened, pointing to this ALE bin. So we're going to be opening this file. Before we do, let's just check some options here. So first of all, it's saying any. In this case, the only files we had were log files. If I had said shot log, then if there had been any other files in this folder, it would have just enabled the ALE files. And then within shot log, we want to do some more options here. If I go to the shot log options, we want it to, in this case, merge events, that is to merge the 24 lines of additional events with known sources and automatically create subclips. That's what I'm going to be asking it to do. So I can hit OK here. And now with the file that I want to import selected, I'm going to scroll down to Open and click Open. And then let's watch to see what happens in our bin. Oh, and then if you see what's happening here, we've got our original, the clips that I had selected and marked off in yellow. And then we have these new clips with their subclip symbol. And you can see that there's these new things that are on top. These should be the new subclips that was created by that ALE file of just the particular clips that we selected for this little subsequence that we're creating. The hope is that when we do this, it's going to create new subclips linking properly to the original Avid media. You definitely don't want to be seeing a media offline error here. So, yep. There we go. We can see we have that. I'm just going to grab those and I'm going to move them into a new bin. So let's create a new bin in our selects folder, and I'm going to call it demo selects 02. Open that up, and I'll grab the footage bin. So I'll get my two bins here. I've selected these new ones that I've created. I'll stick them in here. And then what you should do here is save it. And then you'll recall that I created a new metadata heading, which I called clip order, right? And then once you've saved the bin, you can then go through and go choose columns. And if you scroll down through all the possible columns of metadata, at the very bottom of the list, these are all the user-defined new metadata columns. And one of them you can see is clip order. So I'm going to bring that in here. And what I'll do is sort on column ascending. So this is the order that I would want these to appear in my selects reel for this segment. So now what I can do, while even in the same bin, I'll just click here outside of everything and right click and just do a new sequence. Select them all 24 clips, drag them into this new sequence. And here are all of the clips in the order that I asked for. This is in the shot order that they occurred, with SP talking to camera, and then showing the particular moments happening during that shoot that refer to our theme in this case, which was authenticity. So that now, instead of hours and hours of footage to sift through, this is our selects reel.
As I said in the beginning, it just is crazy, man. So, okay, let me ask you a quick question. So it looks like to me, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, that the way that you've demoed this is a really good way that people can bring what they need to it. They can really make it their own. Am I reading that right?
Absolutely, because it all comes down to what the column headings are that you decide to add as you're sorting your data. So in my case, the authenticity was one. Do the characters appear in the shot was one. Now that was specific to the particular philosophy of these producers who are producing these ads. It was particular to a behind the scenes uh, documentary. In your case, if you're doing, I don't know, the biography of an artist,
Uh,
and it could be the different themes in the person's art and how it
right.
shows up in their life and whatever. Like there's so many ways you can decide what the different categories are. That's totally up to you. And then the rest is just what I showed: custom filtering and sequencing and sorting.
Right on, man. What about AI? So, with all the AI integration, what are you thinking on methodology?
Right. Okay, so just to make the distinction, there's generative AI where it like, creates new footage. We're not talking about that,
No.
but I can see kind of analytical AI.
Right.
There's really good uses here. One thing, which I have tried on a different project, is the auto transcript function that has time code attached to it, right? So if you have an interview that AI transcribes for you with time codes, that entire interview, each little section of the interview, let's say you have an interview that has like 100 moments in it that are transcribed, that goes into the spreadsheet too. That's just 100 new rows in the spreadsheet. And you can reclassify every moment of the interview based on what's going on in the interview. And that becomes part of it. So you're just bringing in the AI transcript into your overall gigantic spreadsheet.
Okay, so that's interesting. I like that. So then the AI transcribes it, then you take it from the AI and you go, see ya, AI, thanks. These big companies that are making the AI, they're trying to replace everybody's jobs with AI. I believe the future of AI is it will help us do our job faster and better and free us up to tell the story, not tell the story for us. And I think that's a really big distinction that these big companies are forgetting.
You have great comments always in your comment section. So it'll be really interesting to see what the discussion
Yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah. We're gonna leave in the description, ways to contact Ron if you'd like to talk to Ron more about this. Please leave some comments if you think of an application that wasn't mentioned by either of us here, where you're like, "Hey, this would be good for XYZ." Let us know. We are edit nerds just like you.
And while we're shouting out here, you may or may not know this, that Diana has her own mentorship program for people who are, you don't even have to be a brand new editor, right? So I am actually a student of Diana's, and I'm doing mentorship with her to expand my editing capacity, and it's just been amazing. So I can speak for Diana as a mentor, and it's just been a great few months, and we're still in it. Like I'm still learning all the time.
Thank you, Ron. That was a nice shout out. I appreciate that. I'll leave information in the description about the mentorship program. And there's a lot of other things down there too. You can do a deep dive with me if you'd like. And listen, folks, if you're out there and you're looking for a good AE or a fantastic editor, Ron, don't forget this guy right here. Feel free to reach out and ask him to work on your doc. Ron, thank you so much for stopping by. Really appreciate you taking this time out. Hit us up in the comments. If you like this video, if this video was helpful for you, hit the like button, hit that subscribe button. It really does help the channel. You have no idea. And we will catch you in the next one, folks. Take care.